G'day and welcome to the Campfire Project. Today I'm here with Haim Ohayon, who is a personal life and business coach. How are you, Haim?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me in the show.
My
I
pleasure.
waited for that for a long time and the time came.
Well, we enjoyed our previous chat when we first came in, and I was looking forward to another one. And then we've got Jerome Lamarque, who is a mind management expert and business strategist. How are you, Jerome?
I'm fantastic, Alan, and really looking forward to this conversation. I've been on them a few times and I've always learned a lot. So being around amazing human beings that are trying to make a difference to the world. So I'm excited.
Excellent. And then we have Karen Chaston, who is the CEO of the Chaston Centre. She's a life coach specialist specialising in loss and a best-selling author. How are you, Karen?
Great, thank you, Alan, and great to see you all.
Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation like the rest of you on that, because we were looking at well-being, but taking it to the level, what does maintaining your well-being mean to you, both in the areas of mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? So what I'd love to do, Karen, is throw it over to you to get us started on this conversation.
Ladies first.
Well, thank you. So when we were putting this together, we all had a joint email and we were emailing each other with different sort of ideas. And Jerome came in and he beautifully said, I help business owners achieve fast and sustainable progress in business whilst maintaining their well-being. And when I read that, like, I understood what well-being is, but I thought that's such a area that most people would interpret their way through their life experiences, which is exactly right. So I thought, let's deep dive into what well-being means to you and to your clients, customers, your family, because most of the times we do forget about ourselves. We put ourselves last and we end up sick, like someone on this panel is today. And we also don't really dedicate and schedule our me time, which is so very important. And that's why I thought, let's deep dive into well-being, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, so that we can create the best life that we are here to live. So guys, what does well-being mean to you?
Yeah, well, Jerome, you were the one who had this on the original post, so come on, mate.
I suppose we've got to start with, I suppose everything starts with the relationship with yourself. And this is the crutch of really looking at personal leadership, really around personal performance before you look outside of yourself. And so a lot of the stuff is that I work with, it used to be mainly men, but there's more and more women now joining the community, and it's getting people to understand that everything starts with you. Everything starts with you, and we talk a lot in the group about vibrational levels. And when you're vibing at a low level, you really have to work hard in life. You get caught up in the matrix, and you get that institutionalized way of thinking, and you think of your work as work and tasks to do. And then as we transform people in the program to think a different way, we really notice the difference where they actually don't work as hard. They work a lot smarter, but they vibrate at a different level. They become a magnet rather than chasing. They become a magnet. And I think every single human being is beautiful. But if we don't see the beauty within us, and that sometimes is the hardest thing to do, is go inward and go, what am I great at? What do I love doing? You know, what are my natural gifts? And I've gone on this journey for nearly 20 years now, research and studying. And I truly believe, and through my research, working with many, many people, that we're actually born with a purpose. We actually don't find it along the way. I think nature has a much, much higher intelligence than to produce something that's not needed in the world. Even down to a fly, an insect, they all have a purpose. And then once we actually tap into why we're here and what we're meant to be doing, and it does take a little bit of soul searching and getting rid of the masks, getting rid of all the conditioning that our parents put on us, our friends put on us, our teachers put on us. And when we get back to the core of who we are, it's amazing how the people in the group start attracting things in their life that before they were finding it so difficult, because they're actually connecting back with themselves and who they're always meant to be. So we never talk about who you want to be. We always talk in the group about who you're always meant to be. And so that journey of having a great relationship with yourself, I think that's where it all starts for me. I'm not sure if it resonates with the rest of the group, but yeah, that's where it all started for me. And then you add on to the layers of who you are based on your core foundations.
Yeah, I think everything does start with us. How about you, Haim?
Mark Twain said, every person have two important days in his life: the day you're born and the day you discover why. What's your purpose in life? What you're doing here? And this is one thing that we're missing. We know what we do. We didn't pay much attention to know who we are. Now, when you don't know who you are, it's very hard for you to get anywhere because you don't know where you start. So when people ask me, tell me about you, who are you? I simply said, I'm honest, I'm loyal, I'm compassionate, I'm loving, I care, I have high integrity. That's who I am. And now you ask me how I have my income, that's a different story. Now, who I am, go with me whenever I go. If today I'm a plumber, so who I am is a plumber. If tomorrow I'm a car mechanic, so tomorrow I'm a car mechanic. I never change. The way I earn income change. The way I treat myself and other human beings is the same. And that's, many people don't even pay attention to that. You meet people, before you know it, they go to what they do for a living. The funny part, 80% of the people, if not more, they hate what they do. So why you highlight in a third sentence what you hate? Now, if I go deeper than that, that's what we call attitude. Attitude, it's built from three parts: the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you act. Now, if what you feel and what you think is not the same, the action is to choose side, which way to go. When what you feel and what you think is the same, you have a great attitude. If not, it goes sideways.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
So Karen,
Mm.
your views around this as well. Let's just, by the way, don't wait for me to ask. If you want to ask a question or you've got a comment, please jump in. And that'll also give my throat a rest as well. So, okay. So,
Thanks,
go ahead.
Alan. Yeah, me time, finding me, there are over 40 different loss events that will affect all our lives. And we all will experience multiple major losses throughout our lives. But the number one loss event that most of us don't even know we're experiencing is our loss of identity. We become these people who we think we should be in order to achieve what we feel we want. But then we achieve it and we look in the mirror, and if we're totally honest with ourselves, we will go, who are you? I don't even like who you've become. You've lost your joy. You've lost your essence. You have lost your true uniqueness, and you've just blended in, and more than likely, you're not living true to your values either. And that's why you wake up each day and you're dragging yourself out of bed, because you know you're not living true to yourself. That's what I experienced in early 2013 when I left my corporate life. I did look in the mirror and I did go, I don't even like who you are. You've become this angry person. Why? Why are you so angry? And that's when I went on that journey that I call becoming my own best friend. Because when you think about it, you're so different with your best friend, like the way you speak to your best friends, the things you do, the laughter you have, all of those sort of things. Imagine if you spoke to your best friend the way that you sometimes speak to yourself. Like, how long would they be your best friend for? Probably not very long. So when you start to live your life as your best friend, which is why I really zoned in on this well-being that Jerome shared with us, it's so important, and it's so true what everyone has says. Your vibration does lift, and as your vibration lifts, positivity and gratitude and all of those amazing feelings and essences come into your life, and you end up attracting amazing people like we are all with at the moment, because you are thinking the same way. You realize that life is here for us all to thrive, not for us to get stuck in survival, where probably 85 to 95% of the world population are stuck because they're in that matrix, they're in that grind, not realizing that we live in a world of infinite possibilities. And when we realize that we live in that world of infinite possibilities, we actually go, it's all there. It's all there for us. It's all there to assist us. And we can create that life. But it does, as everyone has said, begins with you loving you and being true to who you are and who you came here to be.
That's it.
I love that.
Haim was saying there before, what we think and what we feel. And I can see when they're out of tune, that's when we look at it, we get that situation, look back on our past and we go, well, how did I get here? I wish I'd taken a different path. And everything does start with us. But as you said, speaking to ourselves in the same way that we would speak to our best friend, because as you said, we talk to them in the way we talk to ourselves, they wouldn't be around for long. And we'd be very lonely.
I love that. That's such a beautiful share, Karen.
Thank
And
you.
no, it is. It's amazing because the relationship, we're brought up to focus on worrying about what other people think. Oh, don't be rude. Don't be this. Be quiet at school. Listen to what other people say. And it's like, okay, I'm now, my radar now is making sure that everyone else is okay.
Yeah, and then added to a girl, I just sit there and look pretty and be nice and be polite and don't interrupt and don't be loud, all those sort of things.
Don't be you.
Hold on. Yeah, don't be you. When I first started my corporate career, I had so many men, well-meaning advice was, don't act like that if you want to get ahead. Don't be that person. Don't be so loud. Like, I'm loud. I grew up in a family of 7 children. You have to be loud just to be seen, just to have a meal served for you. How many times did I walk in and there was only 6 plates out? It was like, what the hell is going on here? So yes, it is. It's about being true to who you are and realizing that who we are today is a sum of all of our experiences. And sure, it would have been great to have the knowledge that you have now way back then. What different choices would you made? What would have, your path been truly like? But I firmly believe that you are who you are today so that you can create whatever you need to create, or whatever movement you would like to change, or whatever you would like to do from this perspective, because now is the right time. Because, it probably wouldn't have been there ready for you even a couple of months ago. And when you live life that way, it's with no regrets. I'm going to share a story. My mother passed away about a month ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it.
Thank you. And she was scared to die. She sat there and said, I don't want to die. I've done a lot of bad things in my life, and I think I'm going to hell. And she didn't want to die. And I thought about it. I wanted to know what those bad things were. Not that I asked her. But I seriously thought, oh, wow. Like, I'm not like that. I have no regrets. Like I live my life so that I will have no regrets. And when my time comes to move on to my next adventure, I'll be ready. But not that it's going to be soon. But you know what I mean? It was really interesting perspective that I thought, wow, she didn't maintain her well-being. She obviously did not live true to her values to be able to be there, ready to pass, but not too scared to pass. And I found that really quite interesting. And there's a book by Bronnie Ware, The 5 Regrets of the Dying, and it really hit home to me. And, you know, the number one regret is that I wish I lived true to who I am.
Man, I love that.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
the second one was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. You know, so you sort of bring those two together and you start to realize that your well-being is so important.
I wrote down something you said there, and I think if we take away mental, emotional, spiritual, physical well-being, and it's like the conversation really is about being true to who you really are. I think that is the essence of well-being. Thank you so much, Karen. That was
but it is. Yeah, you're so right, Tremor. And I wouldn't have even like brought it into it. That the number one essence is that. You know, you can put all these things into it. And when you are true to who you are, the love, the joy, the gratitude, the enlightenment, it all just flows to you, doesn't it?
In the program, we talk a lot about the ego and the authentic self, and that the transformation in the program is letting go of a lot of the ego stuff and moving into.
Well, that ego won't go quietly, will it?
Yeah, no, it won't. But what I'd love to know is from the panel, because you're so all experienced, not only in what you do but life as well. Why do we find it so difficult, as I write, to really be us, to be who our true essence? Well, I'd love to hear your opinions on that.
I will answer that.
Yeah, beautiful.
I wrote the book a few years back, and the first chapter, it was about awareness, which is mean we need to be aware where we're living, and we're living in two places. We live outside, and we live inside. Now, the way we train is to react and respond to what's going on outside of us. Now we develop feeling about that. What's happening in the news, what happened in the neighborhood, what's happening in the family, what's happening around us. Now, what's happened outside of us, take control of who we are. We react and respond to that. Now, the key is to have a better life is to reverse that. You start to live from inside out, which is mean what happened outside of me, it's happened to have nothing to do with me. I can develop kind of feeling, something bad happens, so okay, I feel bad, but I don't buy real estate over there. It takes me a short period of time and I move on. It's registered in my memory, but it's not define me. I am who I am, and I do what I do according to me. What's happened outside, happen outside.
So, Haim, would that be with family, like arguments between family, the news? What can you give us some examples? I'm so fascinated and curious by this conversation. Thank you so much, Alan, Karen. Can you give us some examples of what you mean by that? Because I'm sure people watching this would.
Let me take Karen, for instance. She just talked about that, about her mother that passed away a month ago. I feel sorry for her, but I don't stay there. I move on. We have that phrase that say, I have a bad day. I have a bad day. Basically, what happened, something happened for 60 to 90 seconds. We rehearse it the whole day. Now the day is gone. When you stop to rehearse it, now you save the day. And that's the key. In everything that we do, we have a bad news. We need to say it to at least 10, 12 people. When you have good news, If you reach the fourth people to tell him, is you stretch it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
But that's the way it is.
Mm.
So if you don't have control the way you feel what's going on around you, you don't have control in your life.
Mm.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, I made a choice years ago that I don't share bad news like a whole lot, because especially if it's something that happened to me, because every time you tell it, you relive it. So you're putting those hormones back into your body and flooding yourself with negativity. And it's like, I don't need this, you know, but you get to choose how you feel, and you get to choose what, you know, feel good hormones or feel shit hormones are in your body. So I totally agree with that. You know, I stopped watching the news years ago, you know, because it's like, I don't need to know. You know, do I really need to know what is happening here? Someone will tell me, you know, and so what if I say, I don't know about that earthquake? They go, like, it happened a month ago. And I go, oh, did it? Right. You know what I mean? It's like, do I really need to know? How does it affect mine? It comes back to, you know, that circle of influence. Stephen Covey from years ago, you know, what's in your circle of influence and what's outside of it? And how does it affect your life in what you're doing? And, you know, let's face it, we've had the last 3 months of news that I never really watched, but I certainly knew what was going on.
Yeah, everyone else was sharing it, and that's the issue. And that my attitude is, if I can't change it, then I don't need to know about it, because knowing about it and not being able to do anything about it, well, that has a negative effect on us. But as Haim was saying, something happens in that 60 to 90 seconds, and then we keep rehearsing it for the rest of the day. So we repeat it over and over again. And, you know, I think a lot of our programming comes from outside. We listen to other people. As far as, and what's the biggest thing today, you know, talking to men and that about, you know, the shame they have. Well, I look at it and go, does shame really exist? If you did the best you could with the information you had at the time, there should be no shame at all. If somebody else is putting onto you that you should be ashamed of that, well, with the new knowledge you've got and the knowledge they've got, yeah, it probably would have been right if you'd done that with that knowledge. But you didn't know that. With regret, I look at it and go, okay, then there's a lot of things I've regretted in my life. But then I look at the regret and I go, how did they come together to make me who I am today? And so even the regret, then I look at that with, it's no longer a negative word, it's a positive word. It all comes down to the energy that we want to give the word.
Yeah, shame is a really, really low vibration. You know, as Brené Brown says, it actually says to you, you are bad. It doesn't say you did bad. It says you are bad.
That's it.
And when shame has been piled onto you, and, you know, as a 16-year-old, I got it piled onto me a real lot because I became pregnant, you know. And what did I do? I did just about everything everyone else was doing. The only thing I didn't do was take contraception, sort of thing. And so I got shamed by the best people on earth who can give you shame and guilt, the nuns, the Catholic nuns. And boy, do they know how to really pile that on you. But it is a process of you working through. And as Alan said, looking at it and what's the good that came out of this? My voice came out of this because I was shut down for a good 6 months. My voice came out of this. Let's look beyond what's really going on, because there's more to this than what is being portrayed. I got that out of it. But more importantly, I got my daughter out of it. Yes, I adopted her out, but she's been back in my life for 23 years. And that is finally a great relationship. So, yes, we do things that people perceive they should shame you about and pile you up with it. But when you deep dive in and you find you and you find your well-being, you can find the good and the bad that's come out of it. We live in a world of polarity. There will always be good and bad, and there will always be negative and positive, left and right, all those sort of things. But when you look at the whole extent of it, you can see that, do you know what? That wasn't that bad. And you actually are this person because of this.
Yeah, I love that, Karen. And I'm going back to one of the things we always say is, how do we shorten the gap between, so the three things we talk about a lot is environment, routines and habits, and they will determine the quality of your life. And one of the things we talk about in habits is shortening the gap. And so, I'll give you an example. And this is my ego. Once upon a time in relationships, if I had an argument with my partner and that, I could sulk for 3 days, literally sulk for 3 days because I didn't get my own way. And we talk about the bad habits, and then
That's abuse.
yeah, absolutely.
And most people don't think it's abuse.
Yeah, that's right.
They're saying nothing,
Emotional,
saying
yeah.
a lot.
And just shutting down, and then going into this man cave for the wrong reasons. And so we talk about now it's like that with my new partner, it's like it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean the triggers are not there, but that might last now for 10 seconds. There's what we mean by shortening the gap. How do we shorten the gap in that bad habit from 3 days to 15 seconds? It doesn't happen overnight because you've got so much neural pathway that's created that, and you haven't got the new neural pathway that's going to override that. So it takes a little bit of time in the transformation of doing it. And so understanding, for me, that is a sign of well-being. It's not always what we think, going to the gym, sleeping well, eating well. It's such a holistic point of view, but it also gets back to, I've got this written down here, being true to who you really are, because while I'm sulking for 3 days, I can't be who I really am. I've come out of myself because like an immature child, I didn't get my own way.
Yeah.
And we talk about immaturity and maturity in the program. And so
did you go back to the core of when that behavior began and heal that behavior?
I've done so much deep diving. I went through a journey of when I was in a really uncomfortable place in my life of, I've never really suffered with depression because I'm quite a happy person in nature. And I've always been into fitness, and it's always got me out of trouble, fitness and exercise and playing team sports. And so that can be a form of hiding as well. But when I dived deep into Buddhism a lot. And through Buddhism, it taught me to let go of control, let go of jealousy, let go of attachment. So that was that journey. And it's a great question, Karen. I probably did, but I can't recall it right now because I've gone through so much stuff.
Yeah, because that's what I would have done. I do a conscious alignment process with people I work with, and that takes you back to that core experience, as you were a child before 7, that would have created that behavior in some way. And it's about healing that incident, and then obviously cuddling the inner child and then moving on, the little boy within you sort of thing.
Do you know what, Karen? That's such a great question. And as I bring it up now, because we talk about in the group, we talk about modeling as well. And I think it's such a great question as I'm sort of searching for it. The thing is, I learned a lot of the male role models around me growing up were alcoholics. The father I didn't know, my biological father, my stepfather, my uncle. And my uncle was one person who didn't get his own way, would sulk for ages. And so sometimes, I don't know if it's a trigger within me, but I just learned these things around my male role models. When they didn't get their own way, they would, and this was my mum's brother. And these were massive influences around me growing up. And so I learned a lot of these behaviors. And I started to adopt them without realizing it. And so our environment's so important. This is what we talk about in picking up habits.
Yeah.
So that's what you do. When you don't get your own way, you throw tantrums and you don't talk to people. What I mean? That's what you do. So
we observe and we learn from everybody else, and we repeat their behaviors. Haim, you were going to say something before.
Yeah, there is 3 things that we can change direction in life when you look into that. That's your belief system, your habit that comes from your belief, and your imagination. Now, imagination go in 2 ways. Either you see all the time how to stay away from things, or you see how to get into things. Yeah, majority of people are expert over what not to do. That's what they run in the head the whole day long. The other side of that is people that go in toward something. Their mind rewired differently. which is mean all the day they're thinking how to get there, what I have to do, who I need to talk to, what road I need to take. And that's totally different direction. That's not a lot of people going that way, but when they break, which is mean you need to replace one habit. When you replace one habit, what do you say to yourself? I couldn't believe I can do that. Here is the belief. Now, when you replace one habit, now you start to challenge all your belief. Now, the belief come until the age of 5, we imitate and copy what our parents do. Later on in life, whatever you perceive is true, it's become your belief. Now, there is a lot of superstitious that's actually disbelief. When you say, I'm not going to cross the street when a black cat crossing the street. Well, I don't buy it. I go anyway. So now you look at me and say, wait a minute. I believe that something bad will happen and you go ahead and do it. So now I start to challenge your belief. The point is, if you want to replace habit, when you look how is that work, life happen on two things. Everything is time and activity. So when you replace your belief, you actually replace activity. When you replace activity, you need to find the time for this activity. You take the time from activity that no longer serving you. Here is the change that everybody wants. Here is the way you break your habit, and now you start to challenge your belief.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
That's so true. Yeah. Belief work is so important.
I think when we're looking at that as well, especially for parents, we've got an incentive if we're looking at that and looking at what we're instilling in our children, what they're picking up, and then focusing on how to change that. We can then be a guide to them at the same time, which also improves our self-esteem because our children are responding differently as well. So it's not just a matter of, I don't believe, of just going and looking at yourself and that's it. Start there, and then when that's done, then move to the next thing. It's actually connecting it with the other things at the time. So as parents, we impact on our kids a great deal. To have an incentive to actually do some changes in our life, well, having something that is really important to us helps us in doing that. And at the same time, we can show our kids that we are, we're fallible. We're not infallible. We do, make mistakes, etc. And it's okay for them to make mistakes, but they can see then that you're following this pathway of always trying to be on the getting better all the time, always improving and being a better version of yourself. And then they can aspire to that. So while working on ourselves, we can also work on the next generation at the same time.
I love that, Alan. The biggest thing for me, the relationship with my kids, is when I stopped giving them advice, because then I knew that I was trusting them and respecting their own intelligence, unless they asked for it. And it's just interesting what you said there, because I was having a conversation with my son yesterday, and then he went, "Oh, Dad, I'm doing this stuff now," and we're starting to engage with some financial planners and thinking about our future. And I went, "That's great, son." I said, "That's great." And I said, "Yeah, growing up, you probably didn't get the best financial advice and financial information from mum and dad, and I didn't get it from my mum and dad. So it's so cool that you're taking a step forward in this area." And then, so it's like showing that you're vulnerable at the same time, having an honest conversation with your own son. And he went, "Dad, yeah, but you did give us so much more. You give us this and you give us this, and but let them say it."
Yeah.
Give them the space to say it, right? Rather than defend it. "Oh yeah, we didn't give you one, but we did give you this and this and this."
Yeah.
Reversing it and going, "It's so good you're doing that." And saying, I wasn't really good with money growing up, and I didn't probably help you in that area, and it's so good that you're going in search of it yourself. And then we just develop. And so now I've got a rule. My number one rule with my children is don't give them advice unless they ask for it.
Yeah, it's got to be asked.
It's not easy at times, is it, Jerome?
It's Karen, you're spot on. It's easy now, but it was very difficult when I started consciously, like conscious competence and all that stuff. It was, I had to really think about, I'm stepping in here, I'm stepping into their space.
Mm.
and they didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
And then I had to sort of pull away, and I struggled a few times and made lots of mistakes. And then now it's like, just listen to them and go, oh, how are you going to deal with it?
Yeah.
Mm.
And go,
That's
oh, that's
it.
so cool. Let me know how you get on.
Yeah, and even take it to the next level and say, while you're learning this, when you've learned all that, can you come back and teach me? That really shifts things, because now they become the teacher and they realise the relationships change. Because as a parent of a young child, our job is to nurture and look after, protect, etc. As they grow up, our job as fathers with sons is to help them to understand who they are, where they fit in the scheme of things, you know, they're an alpha male or whatever, where they fit with all the others, but then guide them to actually behave in the right way after that, because we're guiding them to become fathers like we were. And so by asking them questions about how they're doing things and how would they advise, you know, how do you reckon we should do this? What would be your ideas, etc. You're getting them to think about that stuff, so they're focusing more on their kids, but at the same time, they're also feeling that, hey, my ideas matter. My dad thinks these are, you know, wants to know more about my ideas. So that brings you closer together. This is how you can accelerate things massively.
Yeah, and build their
My
self-esteem.
daughter came to live with me in New York around 2012, 2013, something like that. I said to her, I'm going to give you the 4 needs that every human being needs. You need air, you need water, you need food, and you need shelter. All the rest is you want. When you want something, I want you to learn how to make it yourself. I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to give you anything. I want you to learn how to make it. Because I don't want you to be depend on me or anybody else in that world. Depend only on yourself. She became a serial entrepreneur.
Well done.
That's it.
Yeah.
I love that. It's teach them how to fish, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It
Don't
certainly
give
is.
them a fish, teach them how to fish. And it's
I said that recently I changed the way I present myself. They say, what is that you do? I say, I just quit. What do you quit? I mean, I quit to help people. I don't want to do it anymore. When you help people, you don't do favor for them. You do it bad for them. So we have that phrase that said, you can take the horse to the water, but you can make him drink.
Yeah.
Well, I have different application to that. I'm not going to take the horse to the water. I'm going to show and tell him where is the water. When he feels thirsty, he's going to go and drink, but he will remember who showed him the way.
Yeah.
love that.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's amazing, because I came from my psychology had to shift from really judging. I was in a very judgment kind of space in the conditioning that I was growing up in, massive ego, and so you judge your children and judge them in a way that's only satisfying your own ego. You know, I'd say to my kids, you're going to go to uni. No one in our family's gone to uni. And that was all my crap I was dumping on them. And it's a massive turnaround when you start letting go of judgment and you start just seeing people for who they are and listening to what matters to them and listening and searching for their values and then talking back to them in their values. And it's just transformed my relationship with my children, and we're just so close now, whereas before it was more of a duty. They felt, oh, we've got to do this because it's a duty, and you know, we got to do this for dad. Whereas now it's very organic and authentic.
Well done, Jerome, because there's a saying that you're a great parent when your adult children want to hang out with you.
Hey, Karen, oh my God, that what you said there, it was my 60th March, and I didn't know this, and we went, I wanted to go shark diving, we went shark diving, swam with the great whites in cages, and did that with my partner, and it was a great experience for my 60th, and had such an amazing time. But she didn't tell me all this time that her and my son were plotting him to come up, and then when we got back to stay with me, the relationship shifted, and he came up, surprised me at the airport, took me to this really fancy restaurant. We sat there and we had such a beautiful evening. Then we went walking. He hates getting in the ocean, or he used to hate getting in the ocean. He got in the ocean with me and we messed around in the ocean together, and it was all his it was not me asking, come and do this, son. It was like all his enthusiasm
Yeah.
and all his self-initiation. And
Well done. You've become a great parent.
what you just said is like, yeah, it was not changing them, it was changing me.
No, yeah. Yeah. It's
You know, to become a magnet rather than a repellent.
yes. Yeah, that's a good one.
Because one of the things is we change the way that we're communicating. We're no longer listening to respond or to make judgment. We're actually listening to understand. And that's where the difference comes in, because if you can do that, then there's no ego in the way. Whether it's completely gone or whether you've just got, you know, it's being maintained well. But you're now listening to that other person, you're able to connect with them. They're able to see that you're actually listening. That gives a closer bond to them.
Yeah.
When you're just listening to respond or listening to make a judgment, you know, especially the ego gets in the way.
There's a fine line between judgment and observation, I've found, because I always question, am I judging? Am I judging? I'm going, no, I'm actually observing, and this is what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? There is that sort of, sometimes that fine line. Some people go, don't judge that person. I'm going, but I'm not judging, I'm observing them.
I think we make judgments all the time, and judgment is not the problem. The one that is a problem is when we are judgmental. That's the difference, I think, is taking I don't know whether they're nouns and verbs or whatever they are, but the end result is that when we use some of those words, it's like the term being a servant leader. You can't be both. I can be a serving leader, but I can't be a servant leader, because a servant is somebody who's less than the other people. How can you lead?
Yeah.
So the words that we use, so when people say, you know, do I make judgments about people when I'm profiling? All the time. Because the judgments are based on understanding, not being judgmental about something that I'm feeling and putting them in a box that they don't really belong in. So it's not being judging is fine, but you not when it becomes judgmental, then it's the act of it is the problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, I when the way I do it now is listening to connect, listening to learn, and listening to be curious about the other person. And so I use that framework is, okay, am I connecting with this person? I want to learn more about them. So I take and it's such a challenging thing to do sometimes, to take your own map of the world out of the table, and just understand their map of the world. Because I suppose the most difficult thing for me on this journey over the last 20 years is actually learning to listen about the other person without interfering in my thoughts. And that's the thing. And I think once you get there, it's like the person really feels it, and then you feed back to them exactly what they said. They go, you get me. You get me.
That's an impact.
Rather than put my map of the world on it. And I think that's probably the biggest muscle I've had to build over the last 20 years. And doing that with my children now is just, because once you learn it, you do it everywhere.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's not
it becomes second nature. And so doing it with my children now, I cannot remember the last time I've given my children advice. And yet we have conversations for 2-3 hours.
Many times we shoot in our leg without even pay attention to that. What does that mean? We belong to the marketplace. Marketplace is like a huge tree with 3 branches. There is ideal, there is service, there is product. People will join your ideal, which is this ideal. We get together and we talk about something. There is service, there is million of services, and there is product. Now people will join your ideal, people will use your service, people will buy your product. What we need to learn and pay a lot of attention is how to take people from the tree to the branch that we're sitting on. We're not going to marry it. We have marketplace, either it's ideal, service, or product. So when we start to judge people, so don't come to my branch, I don't want you in my branch, so who's missing out here? If your branch is making it to have income, you shoot in your leg. If your branch is to have discussion like that, and you don't like the person, but you have good outlook on life or good thing to say, you're missing out. You can learn from that.
Mm.
If it's a product, I mean, it's so people miss. We're not going to get married. Married is a different area.
Mm.
It's you go to romantic. So the two way to do it is through communication and relationship.
Mm.
And now there is in communication and relationship, the hardest job in the world is to change the way people thinking. If I want to change the way you think, I don't know how to do it. Or it's like juggle few ball in the air, I don't know what ball I'm catching. But see what happened when I change the way you feel. You change the way you think. And that's easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't change the way a person's thinking by doing that. You take them into their feelings. You don't like feeling that way. How do you prefer to feel? Tell me about that. Use all the senses, and next thing you know, their thoughts have changed, and there's no connection to the new thoughts, back to the old thoughts. Okay, just looking at the time, so wrapping up shortly. But what I'd like to do is ask each of you, what would you like to leave with the audience who are listening today?
I've just got I've got a quote that I wrote down the other day, but it's in my book and I just dropped my book. So one moment, please.
Are
She
you
just went
back?
down to the basement. I
I should have walked outside.
I want to
I should
leave
have
you
gone
with
down like this.
I want to leave you with a magic trick.
Okay, so apart from laughter, like makes us laugh every day, it is the most healing, any free thing that you can ever do is laughter. But this saying, which I thought was really fits in quite well, is what we bring into the light, we can work with. What remains in the darkness works us.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's
Say
why I
that
have to go
again,
get
say
it.
that again, Karen.
Okay. What we bring into the light, we can work with.
And work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. What remains in the dark works us.
So true.
Mhm.
So
I love
true.
that. I love
So
that.
that's why I had to go and get it. So
Thank you for sharing.
And I just think that sums it all up.
Mm.
Just do that deep dive within you. Find anything that isn't serving you. You know, deep dive into your beliefs, deep dive into your values, and make sure you're living true to them. And when you do that, you will create the life that you will love, and you will have well-being in all areas of your life.
Who's that by? Karen? Is that by
I
anyone?
didn't write the lady's name down.
Ah,
I
okay.
don't think I wrote the lady. Oh, yes, I did. Tina Welling.
Tina, how do you
Welling,
spell?
Welling. And I guess the
Oh.
surname really fits in with the well-being, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
Very well.
that's so cool.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that.
that's
I
okay.
will go along with Karen. I will bring quote of my own. Let's go like that. When you spend less time looking back, you will have more time to design your future.
Oh, I love that as
Yeah.
well. I love that as well.
Yeah, very good.
And I suppose with me and going on from the is really know what. So we talk about vibrational levels a lot in the Get Performing program, and so the three things we really focus on is what environments, and that can be people as well, but with what environments lift your spirit, lift your vibrational level, where you don't have to work hard. It's so like when I'm here, I just feel it. And then what are the routines in your life that are slowing down the aging process and improving your well-being? And then what are the habits? So what are the habits within those routines? And then what are the strategies within those habits? So we talk about the Russian doll syndrome, environment, routines within that environment, the habits within those routines, and the strategies within those habits. And a lot of this I learned in sports psychology, but sharing it with business owners now, and it's just transforming their life because they've got a framework to actually assess their environment, their routines, habits, and the strategies, and then somewhere to come and do that. So that would be my share from this awesome session with some awesome people.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I was just.
What's yours, Alan?
Well, as I said before, it's the main thing is for us to look inside ourselves, but at the same time, be gentle on ourselves in the first case. Look at some of the words we're using and just ask us, is that what somebody else has imposed on us, or is that really true? And as I said, shame just doesn't really exist. And you did the best you could with the information you had at the time. And if you're trying to get rid of shame that you came in under that condition, then the end result is you're never going to get rid of it. You're fighting a losing battle because you're trying to get rid of something that doesn't exist. So see it for what it really is instead of listening to what other people are telling you that it is. Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, thanks very much for being here today, guys. And we will have to get you back on more panel discussions. I think these subjects we need to just keep talking more about than going deeper again.
Yeah.
So,
It was a great conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Haim. Thank you.
Privilege.
Lovely.
Thanks, Jerome, and thanks, Karen. And to everybody else, we'll see you on the next campfire. Bye for now.